Okay, good evening everybody. I am Bart Cacciola from multirotorforums.com. Welcome to our first episode of Drone Radio Live. It's a live show streaming to you from our new studio in Clinton, New Jersey. So before we get started, just to give you a heads up as to how this is going to work. This is our first show. It's as much a road test of our equipment as it is a test of the format for the show and your response. We're going to be looking for feedback afterwards to see what you liked and what you didn't like. But we're going to loosely follow our format tonight. We have some special guests calling in. We're going to try to check all the boxes, but at the same time, if we have to stop, double check something as we are shaking out our equipment, that's what's going to happen. So welcome. Let's get started. First of all, we want to go through our thank yous. I wouldn't be here tonight if it wasn't for a pretty good number of people helping, lending their support, lending their creative input, and I just have to start the show out by giving those thanks to those people. So first up is my good friend Holland Fritchie, who helped move all of the heavy equipment from the house, from the other office into this space. He dedicated the better part of a day helping me move, only annoyed me a little bit, which is good for him, and I really appreciate it, so thank you, Holland. That was the big first step that we needed to get this going. Next on the list is Bruce Pearson behind the console over here. His creative input, his professional input, his career as a broadcaster told me from the beginning that we were going to be able to do this and that we'd be successful. So that's always another good place to start. So thank you very much, Bruce.
My pleasure.
Off on the side, we have Scott Norton. He goes by Moto Preserve at the website. He's a big contributor. He's a very positive influence at the website, always a level-headed person. He likes to restore vintage motorcycles. That's his daytime job, but he has helped out quite a bit. He's going to be contributing to the show later on as a safety correspondent and also as an FPV racing correspondent. So he'll be coming on later, but thank you to Scott. Scott Hess, who's at Multirotor Forums as Scott H. He was also very helpful in that when we were looking around at different configurations for the studio, trying to decide what type of equipment to use, what configuration, he chimed in, said, this is what I've been using, this works great for me, from the cameras to the streaming equipment. He was very helpful. He cost me a lot of money, but I'm married. That's something I'm used to from other people's input. But Scott, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And Yuri Ryder, who's out on the West Coast, he goes by Iris Aerial, or he did go by Iris Aerial. He now goes by Ductile Media at Multirotor Forums. He gave us a lot of creative input. When I called him up one morning in a panic because we didn't have a logo yet, I said, you know, International Drone Radio Hour just doesn't seem to be working. And we wanted to call it that, especially to emphasize the international because of the nature of our membership at Multirotor Forums. It's definitely an international membership, and we wanted to emphasize that. But when it comes to Twitter and their 14 or 15 letter handles, Yuri more or less took it upon himself to call it Drone Radio Live. When I saw that, it hit a nerve, and he was very helpful. He simplified the logo quite a bit, and just over the years, he's cut frame pieces for me, which was also very helpful. So thank you very much to Yuri. You've been a steadfast supporter of the site and what we've tried to do. So everybody at Multirotor Forums, you guys are a huge inspiration, so I can't go on without saying thank you to you guys. You keep everything civil, friendly. You set a great example for new members, whether it's the professional people or the people that are just starting out. Our membership, you guys are an exemplary bunch of people, and I really appreciate it. My good friend Bill Cantor has to listen to me quite a bit when I'm complaining about things. We've been doing some long hours here, spending a lot of money. He puts up with it, takes it in stride. We go play golf, we fly airplanes, and he calms me down. So thank you very much, Bill. Last but not least, my patient wife, my two kids, Elizabeth and Gabriel, my wife Sharon. You guys have been putting up with me quite a bit the last week or two. This has been a big endeavor, trying to get this studio up and running. And you guys have just stood by. You've said, do what you have to do. We see how important it is, and so I appreciate that. Now, we also have our first supporter of the show, Brian Paddock. He goes by Punkin Drublick at the website, and he also runs multirotormania.com. It's a shop that's out on the West Coast. He and his partner Brian When I first started sending out emails, Brian emailed me back and said, how do I support this? You guys look like you're going to have a great time and it's going to be a good show. And we talked about it a little bit, and I just appreciate when people step up, they feel positive about something new, and they're willing to take a chance. So Brian, thank you very much. Brian's website, again, is Multirotor. They're out in Northern California, and they're a sponsor of the show, so thank you. Now, about me personally, I'm your host. Again, my name is Bart Cacciola. I live in New Jersey. I'm 47 years old. My day job, for my day job, I fly for a major U.S. airline. And when I'm not doing that, I'm usually kicking out spammers, building helicopters, as you can see around me. We'll talk about those in just a second. I'm not going to talk about myself specifically ever again. We're just getting this out of the way because it's the first episode. So I'm 47. I wear glasses. And I have a BS in mechanical engineering from Rutgers. That was my education. I quit working as an engineer after about 2.5 years so that I could go out and become an airline pilot. And I've been flying RC since I was about 15, so that would have been 1983. I started flying multi-rotor helicopters. I bought my first kit November of 2011. And November 2010, and then I was flying it within, I think it was about 3 weeks it took me to kind of put it together, being very careful, as a lot of us are with our first builds. My first exposure to multi-rotor helicopters was via a YouTube video that Holger from Microcopter had put up. He had just finished the new hexacopter. He was flying the new Flight Control 2.1, which was leaps and bounds ahead of everything else at the time. As an engineer, as somebody who had flown radio control his whole life, I saw that video, and just like a lot of you, the creativity, the ideas in my head started going wild. What could we do with these things? So after about 6 months of kicking it around, I pulled the trigger on that microcopter kit, flew that for about 6 or 7 months, crashed it into a pine tree over a golf course, and started making my own stuff. So some of you that are at multirotorforums.com for a while now know my frames, and my frame style is this XY format, I call it. So I wanted the wide spacing of the front arms like a Y-copter would have, and I wanted 8 motors like I had with my octocopters. So what I did was I built this prototype. This was sometime late in 2011. This was the first XY frame that I flew. And this had a microcopter flight control system on it. It had the old Roxy motors from my octocopter kit. And I flew this around in the front yard to confirm that this asymmetrical format would work. And that was actually Yuri from Iris Aerial, or Ductile Media. So he cut those frame plates for me. We flew that. The largest I've built of that, this is an Iris, also an XY format. They probably didn't know they were even doing that. But the largest of the XY formats was this one, using MN 4012-11 motors, 400 kV. It's got Microcopter's latest flight controller, the 2.5 with the version 3 speed controllers and a Movi M5 camera gimbal. So this was the largest of all the XY airframes that I built. And I built that about a year and a half ago. And now the smallest ones that I've been flying is this one, which is my 250 size racer, also that XY. This is an XY4. And I have it set up. It's not completely dialed in. The camera's pointing straight ahead. Those of you that race know that's kind of pointless because it points down when you're really ripping along. I have to make a camera mount for that. But that's who I am. I run multirotorforums.com. It's a 7-day-a-week job. We try to keep the community friendly and civil. We try to keep everybody pretty mellow by answering questions, by being nice to each other, whether they're brand new or if they've been there for a while. So, welcome to the show. We're going to get started first by speaking with Patrick Egan. We're going to first speak with Patrick Egan from suasnews.com. If you haven't been to that website before, it's original news content as well as news stories from around the world from different sources. They've been in operation for, Patrick can tell us, I think it's probably 5 years at this point. He's been in the business for a long time, and he was very happy to be a contributor for the show. So Bruce working the panel is going to give us a Skype connection to Patrick Egan.
He's not on this one. Got Mr. Brower up first.
You're not seeing Patrick?
Must be on this other.
Which account is that one signed into?
Bart.
Yeah, it should be down the left side.
I'm looking.
Live show. So let's do some questions. I had said in the press releases that I was sending out that we were going to do questions.
Scott.
At some point in the future, we're going to take your questions, but right now we're taking questions from friends, people involved with the show. You can't see it right now, but Scott Norton's crawling across the floor in front of the cameras. And we're going to do the questions that we have. We won't do all of them. They're starting to get the Skype problem ironed out, but that's the nature of a live show, especially when it's your first one. But why is the show being done live? Perfect time for that question. We're doing the show live because whether you do it live or whether you stream it through a recording device and then edit it, it's a lot of work. Me personally, I'd rather do all of the work up front. I'd rather do my research. I'd rather do my planning, reach out to the different people that are going to be involved, and do all of that work up front so that when it comes time to actually present it to you guys, it's natural. I'm speaking extemporaneously. I don't have a script in front of me. And if I had to sit here all day long reshooting things over and over again, some of the stuff we're talking about right now is the second time we're doing this because we tested all the equipment 2, 3, 4 times in the last couple of days. So some of these things, I'm saying it over and over again, and it gets old. If I had to do this all day long in the studio trying to do this as a recorded program, I wouldn't do it. It would be treacherous. I'd rather do it live. It's kind of fun doing it live. It's a little exciting. So that's why we're doing it live. It's going to be a better show. It's going to be more exciting. You're going to enjoy it more. So that's that question. So as we continue to work out the Skype problem, we're going to ask another question. Why does the word drone in the logo have quotation marks around it? The quotation marks are around the word live. I'm sorry, the word drone. Where are we at?
Coming up now.
Okay, Patrick, if you're listening, we're going to call you in just a minute. So the word drone has quotation marks around it for a very good reason. It's not my favorite word. It's a word that's used by a lot of people in the media to describe what it is that we do, and a lot of people feel it's not the most accurate term. It's a word that's used in derogatory ways. Some people see it as strictly military when it's drone. So I have quotation marks around it because typically when I use the word drone, I put my hands up and I go drone because I don't like it. But this big company out in California called Google, which influences a lot of people's behavior and activities, they also have a pretty effective search engine. They love the word. When you go on Google and you search the word drone, you get a gazillion hits. If we did multi-rotor radio live show, the number of people searching multi-rotor versus the number of people searching drone, big disparity between those two groups. Also, if you're going to search the word drone, that means you might be new to the community. It means you might be starting out. You might not know what best practices are for safety. So if you're going to search drone, we would love for you to come and pay attention to the show. We're going to preach safe practices, building and repairing and maintaining your equipment at a professional level. We're going to talk about how to operate, how to do things with your helicopters that professionals do to go out and try to make money with this stuff. So while I have the word drone in the title of the show, it's something that we've had to kind of concede the point that it's out there. So how are we doing with the live feed? Okay, we're back.
this one.
Now, usually I don't like to place the blame, but Patrick, something you've done obviously has affected our stream because every time we bring you live, we're choking our connection here. But no. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Should I compliment you one more time for the viewers at home on what a wonderful brick background that is and how jealous I am?
I pay extra for that.
Yeah. We would have had me back live with a beer in my hand after all of this in my recovery mode, but we didn't bring beer because we were trying to be professional. Looking at how things are going, I'm having beer next time. That's something I've just changed in the protocols. We changed the bylaws to say beer is allowed on set. So anybody that's still watching, thank you very much. We appreciate you hanging in there. Again, this is a live production. We're doing this from our studio in Clinton, New Jersey, and this is the nature of live broadcast. So we're going to just be resilient. We're going to take it in stride and bring Patrick back in and get back to the news. What's our first? Let's stop dilly-dallying. People want to hear what the news is. They like looking at you. You're a handsome guy. What's the news in the world of multi-rotor helicopters, Patrick?
Well, let's see. I think the biggest news story of the weekday, whatever you want to call it, is probably the drone registration, as everyone's calling it.
Yes.
There was a hearing today, and the administrator of the FAA got out there, and he's kind of talking about this. And I hate to look away, but the notes are on another computer now because I switched computers.
Sure, no apologies required tonight.
After reading the FAA document, I'm getting ready to make comments for the RCAPA. I'm not really too sure if anyone, including the FAA, knows what the hell they're talking about or trying to achieve.
Right.
Aren't N numbers registration for aircraft? And so, who do they want to register their aircraft? Is it consumers, people that are buying them for Christmas presents?
Right.
And then the other question I got for you, Bart, is, do you think it's going to be hard to read those N numbers at 1 centimeter high?
Yeah, right.
The runway or what? I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, the FAA's requirement for N numbers, I forget, is it 12 inches or 14 inches high for the font on the side of the airplane? The only way you get by with the small numbers is if you're grandfathered in because your airplane was originally manufactured with those, or they had them when the paint or the covering was renewed. So
you're going to have to get, an exemption.
Or a big piece of aluminum on top of the helicopter to display the N number. That would be interesting.
Or you could tow a banner.
Or you could tow a banner, that's right. So yeah, the registrations, I agree. That's big news. A lot of people are confused. I feel sorry. We also run GiantScaleNews.com, which is a website devoted to giant scale RC planes. And a lot of people out there are spending a lot of money on these beautiful airplanes. They're out flying on a regular basis. And here they are getting caught up in this stuff. So we're going to talk to Bob Brown. He's our special guest later on in the show. He's the president of the AMA. And we're going to talk about what's going on with drones, as well as how the hobbyists are going to be affected, because those people want to know as well. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Like you said, does the person who's buying it have to register it? Does the person who's receiving it as a gift have to register it? I certainly understand the pressing concern of everyone involved to get a higher level of responsibility involved when people are operating these things. But to do it in 60 days after we've waited years for reasonable regulations, what they're saying they can do in 60 days, we'll all be pleasantly surprised if it actually happens and if it's reasonable and manageable. So.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath on that one. You really, let's see, what do we, we're less than we're like a month out from Black Friday.
Right.
Yeah. Just don't start holding your breath tonight, because I don't think you're going to make it.
Right.
But I do think that it's kind of funny is that, one of the quotes in the administrator's statement is registration is going to equate to education.
Yes.
So all I have to assume, because I'm not on the inside track, is that the Know Before You Fly program has officially been declared a flop.
Yeah. And they're betting the registration process on consumers reading the manuals, which we know a lot of people don't.
I do that every time. You don't like when you buy you should buy some electronic device. Oh, let me get the instructions.
Right. So, okay, so registration is big, and we're going to talk about that with Bob Brown. I'm sure he's going to have some a little more insight. He probably won't be as boisterous as we are being about it, but he's going to have more information. What else do we have? There was a blimp that got cut loose today.
Yes.
It was flying at 16,000 feet, I understand.
Yeah, scramble the fighters.
Yeah, 2 F-16s were following the blimp.
Well, that's typical procedure for OCONUS operation. So I guess that they figured it's good enough for over there. We'll try it here too.
Right.
The J-Lands, it's kind of interesting. I've actually kind of inadvertently followed that ship around in my travels. I actually was at the factory when it was getting built.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I used to, I don't know, we didn't even really talk about my bio, but I did some work for the United States Army, the Space and Missile Defense Command Battle Lab.
Oh, okay.
We did some work out at White Sands for an NIE exercise, and that ship was out there. And it's huge. This thing's like 240 feet long. It holds something like 590,000 cubic feet of helium. That's a lot of party balloons. Let me just tell you right now.
That's a good way to put it.
Very impressive. The mooring station is like 2 train cars. It's pretty cool. And then, on a side note, so I'm out there at White Sands, and what do they do at White Sands Missile Range but launch off missiles, and
right.
The deal's going on. Very, very impressive.
Right.
Expensive program, but hey, it works, except for when the tether breaks and it goes
bouncing across Pennsylvania. It's on one hand, I was very happy to see Raytheon take the pressure off of drones by letting a balloon go wild for the news people to chase after. On the other hand, it's just one more incident that people are going to have to answer for, and these sorts of things make regulators very uneasy. So
yeah, but it's all how you write the incident or mishap report, Bart. You know that. That wasn't really a breakaway. That was just an unscheduled long-distance reconnaissance.
That's right.
It
carried, I think I read the article, it carried over 6,000 feet of cable dragging behind as it was drifting across Pennsylvania. And one school student, when the power went out, said, why couldn't this have happened tomorrow morning, so they would have had to cancel school. So I'll give that kid credit for trying to make lemonade out of lemons. So what else do we have?
That was kind of interesting, and they took out the power to 30,000 people. And
right.
So a few things, and while we're on the power thing, and it was kind of in my entertainment section, but I was going to talk about the drone that took out the power in West Hollywood.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw that.
I heard about it. I didn't see photos. I believe it was a ready-to-fly quadcopter, one of the higher-end ones that we've seen become very common on the scene.
Yeah, it was an Inspire, and maybe in this case the registration thing would work. They'd be able to, pin something on the alleged perp, like hanging out on a wire or something.
Right.
Right. Or, who knows? But I don't know. Really, it was only 183 people, so really not too much there. It wasn't like they took the power out for 30,000 people.
Right. No, 30,000 people would cause a much more stringent regulatory response than 183.
Exactly.
You had said to me earlier when we were going through some of the details of this exchange for the show that the person flying it may or may not have stuck around. Did you get clarification on that?
The Hollywood Reporter, that's what they reported. We ran the story at SUS News. We run all these stories at SUS News. But,
right.
It wasn't reported if the person had stuck around or not. It's probably one of those deals, hey, I got my drone stuck on your power line. You send somebody out here. You know how it is when your power goes out. It usually takes a crew a while to get out there. You
right.
Went and got a sandwich. Or
right, a few hours at least.
I'm just guessing. I don't know. It wasn't in there, but was interesting. Maybe in that case, although the guy might have called too. We don't know. We don't know all the details. One other thing I want to touch on that with the registration and the near miss things. I mean, you're a real pilot. You
right.
pilot real stuff.
Right.
And so I'm going to ask you, there's an actual procedure. If there's a near miss, there's a form you're supposed to fill out. And aren't they supposed to come and interview you, the FAA people, and ask you, kind of what happened?
There's a number of different things that could kick in if something like that happens. Typically, where we're seeing these incidents is where pilots are coming down final approach. They're close to the ground. They're slowed down for landing. They're configured so they're not as maneuverable as they would be if they were flying along at a higher speed without the flaps and the gear down. And as they're coming into land, their eyes are outside, unless the weather's very bad and they're flying on instruments. And as you're coming down final, you're outside, you're looking at the airport. You might be looking for helicopters that are transiting the area, especially in Newark, we have that a lot. That's where we're seeing these things. People are out there with their helicopters trying to get close-up footage of airliners going by. And we've seen videos in other countries where they've done exactly that. They put it in GPS position hold and they sit there and, you know, watch a 7.3 go by at low altitude and low airspeed. So when something like that happens, anytime something happens like that in that regime of flight, the first thing we do is we call the control tower and we say, hey, Newark Tower, such and such airline, such and such flight number, we just saw this. Sometimes it's bundles of balloons. Sometimes it's flocks of birds. Lately, it's been drones. Now, I don't know how many drone reports there are in this database they're building where there actually was a near-miss contact with an actually verifiable sighting of an unmanned aircraft. But, you know, it's not unreasonable to think that it's happening because we do see videos of people flying at inappropriate altitudes, inappropriate locations, and then posting it inappropriately on YouTube. So we know it's happening. So the reports are not really that big of a surprise. Once that happens, you report it to the tower. Depending on the severity, depending on whether or not, you know, an aircraft might decide to go around. They might abort the landing and take off, fly back around. And in that case, yeah, you start getting into required reports to the company and to the FAA. If it's a near miss where you actually get, and this wouldn't happen with unmanned aircraft that don't have transponders, letting position and altitude be broadcast from their airframe like airplanes do. That's TCAS, it's called.
Right.
When we get a hit from it, like flying into Newark, for instance, there's aircraft that fly up and down the Hudson River. They fly into Linden Airport just south of Newark. Sometimes those aircraft, their transponders are blipping away altitude and position, and we get advisories from our TCAS equipment that says, turn right, you know, climb, whatever, to avoid those aircraft. And when that happens, that's another report. At some point, if unmanned aircraft are forced to have traffic advisory equipment, you know, a TCAS type piece on board, then it's not unreasonable to think that we're going to get traffic advisories when they're out there, you know, on a collision course with full-scale aircraft. But
well, that's definitely a show you should do. I mean, you know, you went into the TCAS thing, and what the, you know, people don't understand what the rules are.
Yeah.
On that, I mean, you know, when you get a TCAS command, you're supposed to automatically, there's no delay, and you're supposed to thing.
And you know what? I should share this with everybody because a lot of people say, how can you see a drone from an airliner? Well, an airliner, depending on the plane, how long it's been flying, what the landing weight is, we're going to be coming into land anywhere from about 135 knots to about 165, 170 knots, depending on the airplanes. Those slower speeds, like the 777 that I fly, when we come in from a long international flight, we're pretty much down, you know, not minimum fuel for landing, but we're down to our reserves and stuff, you know, 18,000 pounds of fuel. So the airplane's technically pretty light. So we're going to be landing slow, and it's you know, stuff goes by very slowly at 135 to 140 knots. Certainly slow enough to tell whether or not there were 3 or 4 Mylar balloons in a cluster that flew by. And I'm not so sure. You know, there was one time in particular landing in Chicago when I'd almost swear I saw a drone hovering in between final approach for 2 parallel runways. I saw it off in the distance. And you know, it happened so quickly. I wasn't sitting in, you know, with the long international flights, there's more than 2 pilots. So I wasn't sitting in one of the pilot seats. I was sitting in one of the jump seats looking out the side window at a fire in the distance, you know, some smoke. And I'm almost positive there was a multi-rotor helicopter sitting there with GPS position hold trying to eyeball that fire, that smoke that was happening well south of the airport. And, you know, I've thought about this over and over again, and I'm almost positive it was an unmanned aircraft, probably unauthorized, sitting there relatively close to an active airport. I didn't report it. I didn't get a fix from the airport, so I don't know how many miles out it was. I wasn't really even sure for a couple days. You know, I chewed on it for a while. But you can apparently see them. You know, it's not hard to see things when you're coming down final. You can tell the difference between a vulture, you know, a turkey vulture that we have out here in New Jersey, and a seagull. it goes by quick, but you can see the details. So it's not surprising when people report this stuff.
Well, that's true too. And for the nod is 1.2 miles an hour, right? Is that
yeah, 1.15. So yeah, 1.2.
Okay, and then the other thing is the cruising speed of the 777.
Well, we don't see this stuff at cruising speed. You know, we're coming down final, like I said, 135, 145 knots, somewhere in there. So 150, 160 miles an hour. And
no, but just for reference, so people, because most people when they're in the airplane and they're cruising, they have no reference. But what do you usually cruise at?
Oh, it goes to Mach numbers. So we usually cruise at Mach 8.4. We kind of pass the 757s as we're going across the Atlantic. That's always fun. But no, here's a good reference, Patrick. If you're on the highway and there's a divider and you're doing 80 in the left lane and somebody else is doing 80 in the left lane, that's 160 miles an hour of closure between the two of you. And so if you can tell the difference between whether it was a male or a female in the car that's passing you, if you could tell whether it was a sports car or a sedan, if you could see whether or not, some detail on the car was obvious or blurred, but that's also at very close distances. So that's worst case scenario. So if an unmanned helicopter goes right past the cockpit, that's going to be the hardest thing to see. But if you get a fix on it while it's still, a few hundred feet out in front of you and you watch it go by, you're going to pick up some detail. If it's farther out and it's just hovering and you're going by at 160 miles an hour, then it's going to be, you're going to be able to perceive detail. You're going to know whether it was a little white plastic one or something else. But the sun position on it, if the sun's behind it, it's going to appear as a shadow. If the sun is reflecting off of it from the front, you'll see details. It's very dynamic, but it's not unusual people are reporting these things, and yes, you can see them. So people should be careful when they're, making their decisions where to fly, that, they're not close to airports, they're not going to inappropriate altitudes. And
well, absolutely.
But yeah, we could do a whole show.
You just gave, for people that don't do this as a profession, like fly professionally, we're talking about, a dynamic job, lots of variations in speed, and like you said, when you're coming in for a landing, you're kind of set up, you're kind of vulnerable, you're coming in. So a lot of this, people don't understand this, they don't know this. Is registration the answer to safety on this one? No, the other thing that they had mentioned is that they did a PSA with the San Francisco 49ers, and they're actually going to play that during halftime, which is a good idea, but really, I think it would be a lot better if, like, maybe during the Super Bowl or something else, they played the PSA about not flying. Probably going to reach more folks, but that's me, I don't know. I'm just some guy from Sacramento. The only other one that I thought was kind of interesting was the shotgun wielding Kentuckian.
The charges for shooting down his neighbor's helicopter.
And really, the only reason that I kind of wanted to bring this up is it kind of ties back into the first story again, where we're talking about these things as being aircraft, or the FAA,
yes.
DOT, and the Congress is classifying them as aircraft. This is another problem I think we have in this whole industry. Okay, so when it's registration, it's an aircraft. Now this guy shoots one down over his neighbor's house or whatever the case, and you can't. It's against the law to shoot guns at aircraft. And so you shoot down an aircraft, and why isn't the FAA over there busting that guy's chops? So not only does the community have to decide where they are on this thing, and I think one time they have a foot in the aircraft camp, and at other times they have their feet in the RC camp or hobby camp. I think that the FAA has got to make a sheer delineation, and just say they're aircraft or they're not aircraft.
Right.
And if they're aircraft, then you have to treat them like aircraft. You can't. I don't think this case-by-case thing is going to work. It's too arbitrary and capricious. And I'll leave it right there. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to the next episode. Hang in there and good luck.
Yeah, thank you for being patient with us. And we got it working again. Next time we do this, we're going to be handling it in a much more structured, formal kind of way. We're just trying to run a little bit fast and loose tonight to get this first episode out of the way. So thank you again. That was Patrick Egan, suasnews.com. He's the North American correspondent, and he'll be back with us every show, giving us featured news from the weeks prior to the episode. Okay, so our next phone call is going to be Bob Brown, president of the AMA. He's been very involved in the effort to fight the effort and to manage the risk of overregulation that members of the AMA have been facing now for a number of years as this whole multi-rotor revolution has been going on in the United States. And if we can get Bob up on Skype, that's going to be our next contact. Phone's ringing. So we're going to answer another one of your questions, another one of our questions for us, actually. So the one that I got quite a bit from friends, and Patrick mentioned this when you're talking about drones, that people's eyes just kind of roll back in their heads. When you tell people you're doing a show, a streaming show called the International Drone Radio Hour, as we were first naming it, they look at you and they say, "Are you out of your mind?" And that was the question that I got quite a bit from people that people were following what I do, and I'm used to my friends looking at me like I'm crazy when I say I'm down in the basement building helicopters. I'm sure a lot of you out there can relate to that people's eyes just kind of glaze over until they see what it is that you're doing, until you hold it up and you go, it's one of these, you know, and you're not out there causing problems, you know, making, you know, diverting traffic and stuff like that. You're actually going out and doing productive, really spectacular, creative things. You're used to these people looking at you like you're crazy, but when you try to launch a live show from a studio that you built yourself using a countertop that you built with components that you bought on Craigslist, they do look at you like you're crazy, and it's a new level of crazy that I wasn't used to even after 5 years of building multi-rotor helicopters. So I'm not crazy. This is a cutting-edge format that we're doing here. We're getting you the most up-to-date, most current information. When things, Bruce is just telling me via hand signals that Mr. Brown is not answering, and you're using the AMA Executive Council Skype contact, and there's no answer. Anyway, the show, when it works, that's the trick, is to make this all work. And we're going to get it, so stick with us. Tonight's not the end.
Try it again.
When it works, this is going to be awesome. And what we're going to be able to do here in this studio on this counter is something like you've never seen before. We're going to be able to take a brand new product. Let's say this Iris was brand new. We could do an hour-long special just taking this thing down to the bones. And you could be calling in via Skype, asking us questions as we're taking it apart. You could say, how twisty are those arms? And I'll say they're a little bit twisty, but they're strong enough. And you're getting it live from me firsthand, so I can't candy coat things. Scott and I were talking about when the next big release comes out, we're going to run to the store with our credit card. We're going to bring it back here and do a live feature with you guys watching us as we do it, asking questions. No other place can offer you that. And then when we're done here, we're going to continue the conversation at Multi-Rotor Forums, and we're going to keep it going because we want you guys, for the money you're spending, to get the best information so you can make the best decisions. So no, I'm not crazy, although tonight I feel like I must have been to get this far. Anyway, here we go. Mr. Brown, can you hear me?
Sure can, Bart.
Hey, we're sorry for all the technical problems. If you've been watching the show at all, we've had some streaming issues and we've had some audio issues, but they're all under control right now. So thank you very much for being patient, staying up past all of your bedtimes, I'm sure, out there in Indiana. I know you have a busy weekend with executive meetings.
No problem, Bart. Let me first of all confirm you're not crazy. Thank you for your effort.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You know, in looking at the Academy, where we stand, where we're going, and so forth, first of all, let me reiterate that we have been doing our efforts with model aviation for approximately 8 decades.
Right.
That being said, for the last 8 years, we've been working with the FAA, trying to represent modeling in all phases for all people. Not necessarily AMA members, but the entire modeling community.
Sure, and we appreciate that. Everyone does benefit from your efforts, whether they're members or not. All the people flying foamies in the parks, all the smaller electric single-rotor helicopters that have been coming out in the last few years. Everybody benefits from the work that you do. I've been a member since 1983, so that's 27 years at this point. 32 years. 30. It'd be nice if it was only 27. 32 years I've been an AMA member. Who do you have sitting at the table? I recognize Dave Mathewson.
Okay, here at the table, We have Dave Mathewson, the executive director, and yeah, Gary Fitch, the executive vice president.
Okay. The three big things as we see it, Bob, from where we're standing, I know you could talk about any number of things as the president of the AMA. The three big things that people like myself wonder about, obviously regulations. We know that's been an up and down fight between the FAA taking a hands-off approach to them clamping down and then now finally loosening up again and possibly having draft regulations someplace in the near term. But the registration stuff that Patrick Egan and I were just talking about, can you shed some light? Can you give us some basic structure of what you're expecting to see when they start making this stuff public?
I'd sure like to be able to give you an idea. Right now, to say that we have a picture would be totally false.
Wow.
I think, as Patrick stated, I'm not sure anyone knows the direction that anyone wants to go right now.
Wow.
I know with the Academy, our philosophy as of the present is in the fact that we have been registering our models for decades. Every person that belongs to the Academy follows the AMA safety code.
Right.
That particular safety code under item 2F, I believe, states that you shall put your name, address, and so forth in your model, or you will have your AMA number on the aircraft, or you will do both.
Right, and for a long time that provided a lot of accountability with people flying their airplanes. Not just the registration requirement, but the safety code and the fact that we were all learning that within the confines of our local AMA clubs, you know, from the people that had been doing it for a while. That's the big element that we're missing right now. People are just buying these things, flying them anywhere they want, and that safety culture really isn't being impressed upon them from the beginning.
Well, and I think the Academy appreciates that problem. Our Know Before You Fly program, working in conjunction with AUVSI and
Right.
several of the industrial leaders, is helping work towards a positive solution.
Right.
I would hope that not only the industry being involved, but the individual modelers being involved would be a very important focus for all of us to pay attention to.
Right. Now, if you don't know where they're necessarily going with the registration, maybe like you said, nobody knows the nuts and bolts, what it's going to look like in however many days they're trying to get it out by. Has the Department of Transportation, has the FAA, have they at least tried to explain the rationale behind this sudden move towards registrations? Have they given you a bullet point list of this is what's driving us, this is what we want to accomplish? Or are they just trying to take another full-scale program and apply it to unmanned aircraft, the small ones, like they did with some of these other regulations? Are they just saying full-scale aircraft are registered, so this Iris is going to have to be, Iris Plus is going to have to be registered also? Or is it just a blanket application of aircraft requirements?
Bart, I think the easiest way to answer that, number one,
that our community has been managed well by our system, a community-based system of safety programming, which includes, as Bob said, a methodology for identifying aircraft of AMA members. And we believe that there are certain platforms in the UAS community that should obviously be exempt from registration. The true toy drones certainly shouldn't be involved in the registration process.
I've got half a dozen of those in the room here with me right now.
Exactly. There's $39 units that fly out of the palm of your hand that have limited capabilities.
Right.
That certainly shouldn't be involved in that process.
Right.
So it's just a real gray area. Like
within the various different people we're dealing with in Washington.
Right.
8 years ago, I would say the Academy was just someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it's quite obvious we're a recognized force for the community. We are respected, and we do carry some positive effect for aero modeling within the congressional or basic government structure in D.C.
Now, one more. We're running pretty late, and I know you guys have a very busy weekend with your administrative meetings. You actually drove out today from your home in Pennsylvania. We talked a little bit about that before coming on the show today. So I don't want to keep you too late, but We also run GiantScaleNews.com, which is a great group of people, and we fly giant scale RC planes. And the comment that I hear a lot is that drones have made this problem for everybody. The airplane guys at the flying clubs and at these big events like Joe Knoll and around the country, the big events, why are we getting caught up in that? And I don't seem to understand that either. As a giant scale flyer, as a guy who's been flying fixed wing, like I said, since 1983. So what reassurances could you give us? I mean, is this going to be something that you're going to go to the line for? Are you going to raise hell if the FAA comes out and says, hey, these guys have to get down to the FSDO and file paperwork and pay a $75 or $80 fee for a 2-year registration to go fly an airplane?
Bart, I think you have to, first of all, understand some of our personal backgrounds. I myself go back quite a few years.
Yep.
However, if you were to look at the initial development of IMAA or the giant scale movement,
right,
you'd find that, for example, the club that I belong to was number 3 as far as a charter number with IMAA.
Right.
We were one of the organizing clubs of IMAA.
Right.
We were definitely a mover and shaker.
Right.
Gary and I belong to the same club. What do I fly today? I fly anything that's fun.
Sure.
However, Gary flies giant scale.
Okay.
And I'd like Gary to address your question, please.
Sure. Gary, nice to meet you, by the way. I've never met you at any of the events or anything that I've been to recently.
Well, actually, your face did look familiar, Bart.
Oh.
I'm the former District 2 Vice President. So
You're a former, where's District 2? Is that in the Northeast?
I'm sorry?
Where are you from? Where's District 2?
District 2 is New York and New Jersey.
Oh, okay. And is Dick Sarpolis a district? Is Dick?
I know Dick, yes.
Is he a district rep, or was he?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Who's the guy that I've seen in model aviation over and over again? Who was?
Well, currently it's Eric Williams. He's the vice president.
No, it goes farther back than that. I can't recall the name. I've been reading model aviation since I was a kid, and these names all start to blend together.
Well, there's Joe Bescher. There's
Joe Bashar. That's the one. Joe
That's
Bescher.
right. That's right.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Sure.
So you're the District 2.
I
district
was
manager,
the
is
District
it?
2 vice president.
Vice president. Okay.
Okay. I'm now the executive vice president.
Right. That's the way I understood it. That you're the.
I'd just like to
Executive vice
interject a
president.
couple of things.
Sure,
First
sure.
of all, as Bob had mentioned, my flying club was instrumental in the development of giant scale aviation. In fact, we've been recognized by AMA back when I was just a club president.
Sure.
With a National Historic Preservation Site because
Wow.
we were part of the foundation of giant scale. This is what I fly.
Can I take a guess at what club that is?
Yeah, it's Southern Tier Aero Radio Society, or the STARS,
Oh, okay.
located near Olean, New York. A couple of things I'd like to mention. We're the ones that took weight limits and increased them, okay, based upon current construction techniques.
Right.
Engine capabilities.
Right.
You take a look at the servos and that we have today. So we felt that from a safety standpoint, it made a lot of sense.
Sure.
And in council, after doing due diligence, we pretty much unanimously agreed. And we did raise the weight limits. That being said, going back to the registration of drones, our primary function, and one of the reasons why we're there is because of the relationship that we've developed with the FAA in the last 8 years.
Right.
And it's our intent to protect our members' right to fly, okay, in the national airspace. We consider ourselves the community-based organization. We have Section 336 of Public Law 112-95 on the books, and I might say that's a law. And it's certainly our intent and all of our effort to maintain our right to fly. And we believe without registration, because of the fact, as Bob alluded, to the fact that AMA members do put their name, address, telephone number, AMA number
Right.
on their aircraft.
Right. Okay, I mean, you can't argue with it. It's worked for a number of years, like you said, for decades. And the giant scale stuff isn't new. It's not specifically giant scale that's being targeted outside of the multi-rotor stuff that is in the news every night. But it's a sore point for a lot of people because we see regulations that are being directed towards unmanned aircraft in general, but the hobby stuff, which has been fine off in the corner for such a long period of time, is getting dragged in. So it's a question that I get very often because of my position in the community. I'm very active with these sites, so I come across a lot of different people and hear a lot of different opinions. So
I think, Bart, and just to reiterate what both Bob and Gary said, AMA is resolute in our position that model aviation enthusiasts, traditional model aviation enthusiasts, as you and I know them, and those who participate in our organization need to be exempt from the registration process. And that's the message we're taking to the task force next week. And you can share that with your listeners on your websites.
Right.
And just to add to one more thing to what Gary said, this whole regulatory process started back in 2008, and long before the proliferation of small UAS to the extent that we see them today. It's just exploded exponentially over the last couple of years.
Right.
And it's true that has created a bit of a challenge for us. In AMA's position, we had two options. We could either divest ourselves from that community or help try to educate in that community so that it flies safely and responsibly.
Right.
And we believe by doing that, we actually help advocate for our members. Because if something happens out there, nobody's going to ask whether it was an AMA member or not that caused the problem. So we believe the best path and the best approach here is to work with this new community, try to educate them, to help them understand how to fly safely and responsibly.
Right.
And because of that, we've gained credibility and respect with, as Gary says, not only Congress, but with government agencies as well as some within the general public. So instead of isolating ourselves from that community, we believe we're much better off being engaged in trying to help them, which then, of course, is seen as we become an asset to all those other entities I spoke about earlier.
Right.
Bart, to that end, I know you're familiar with Know Before You Fly.
Yes.
That program. We were one of the founding partners, along with AUVSI and the FAA, 10, 11 months ago, because we feel that education is preferable to regulation.
Right.
And we've taken great strides. I mean, we've moved forward, and the whole purpose is to get information into the multi-rotor equipment, okay, that tells people the right way to fly, who to contact, and provide at least that little bit of information.
Right.
Like any program, it starts slowly, but it builds.
You know, I think it was when I saw your inclusion in that Know Before You Fly program that it was very reassuring to see that along with the FAA and AUVSI that you guys were included in that as a sponsoring entity. So it's nice to know that the FAA has continued to, as I've been told, there were periods where the FAA didn't work so hard to get your opinions and to get your input on certain things.
You know, speaking of that,
and those were some of the dark days where it didn't quite look like you were going to have the ability to influence the outcome of these regulatory efforts. So I think Know Before You Fly was a little bit of reassurance that hey, the FAA is keeping you guys in play, and there could be some influence that does respect the rights of hobbyists to keep flying.
Well, when you take a look at the press conference that took place a week and a half ago,
I saw that.
Secretary Fox of DOT had, there were how many people on the stage? 15?
Right.
Directly behind Secretary Fox was AMA's Rich Hansen.
Yep.
Next to him was our partners, the AUVSI folks. Then there was Peggy Gilligan of the FAA, then Michael Herta, who is the FAA administrator. Only 3 of those organizations were invited by Secretary Fox to give comment. AMA was one of those organizations.
Yeah, no, it shows progress, definitely. And that's encouraging for the rest of us. It shows progress,
but I think it also shows influence.
Okay. I'll buy that. I mean, I hope that what we see is a positive development in the coming months, that this does... it doesn't all have to go in our favor. Obviously, things are changing. Obviously, technology is developing, and it's bringing about requirements for a little more oversight. You know, we've seen a lot of things go wrong with these. You know, there's plenty of news stories. But at the same time, the people that have been at the clubs, the people that have been flying, following the rules, they've been pretty responsible, and the results have been fantastic. Even with the jets that have come along in the last few years. You know, this is big equipment, very sophisticated, and it's not on the news every night. So, you know, the FAA should respect that. I hope they do. I hope they're watching me right now and they're saying, you know, he's right. We're going to talk to these AMA guys some more and work to keep the hobbyists flying without all the restrictions and being encumbered by regulations. So that's good. Okay. So again, I'm sorry we're running late. I'm sorry that I have to cut you off because of time. But we are going to try to. We have one more thing that we have to do, and then we're going to wrap up the show and go back to the drawing board with some of these technical problems that we've had tonight. I really appreciate you guys trusting me, taking the leap, coming on with us, and you know, participating tonight. You have an open invitation. I said that to Chad, your media relations person, that whatever you guys are up to, if you need to get some news out aside from your own channels that you have, you are more than welcome to reach out. We'll do special shows if we have to, if we can help to get the word out and improve the safety environment, help move along the regulatory environment in a good direction. We're more than happy to help, so thank you.
Okay, Bart, we thank you for allowing us to be on the show. I want everyone out there in the audience to keep in mind the Academy represents everyone. The bottom line is having fun in the hobby of model aviation. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.
Hey, good luck, Bart.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, so we saw that the AMA is on it. They are cooperating with the FAA. They're included, which is all positive stuff. Now, before we wrap up, it's getting late, and we do have one more thing we want to cover, which is the Hornet 250 airframe from Aeronavics. We put this in the mailer when we were announcing the show that we were going to cover this as a product review. So I'd like to show it to you. It's pretty cool. When I opened the box, I had seen photos of this, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. You know, it's a little funky looking. And what it is a carbon fiber tube that's cut via a CNC router, a 4-axis CNC router. So the machine does the cutting. The 3 axes are X, Y, and Z. But then they have a 4th axis that actually turns the carbon fiber in the machine so they can cut. I don't know if you can see it. So you can see air slots on the side. There's a top access panel, and there's actually small vent holes around the back end where the ESCs are mounted. Okay, so this is a really cool little helicopter. It should get a design award for the year for just, you know, elegant design. The arms, there's 4 arms, and they screw on with these little flanges that fit to the carbon fiber tube. And the arms are a single piece of tubing with the flange and then the motor mount, and it's all bonded together. So you get a couple of these in a package if you have to buy spares. If we take the top off, there's room inside for a 3S battery pack. Depending on the motors that you decide to put on it, the ready-to-fly version comes with Emax 12-amp ESCs and Emax motors. They have been shipping them with either the OpenPilot CC3D board, or this one has the OpenPilot Revo board, which is a common size with the Brain FPV board, the Naze 32, the newer one, SP Racing F3, that's another board of that size. It's 36 by 36 millimeters with 30.5 millimeter mounting holes. The way this works is there's a power distribution bulkhead on the back, and the ESCs are actually hardwired to that panel. And then there's a pass-through on that bulkhead for your FPV, your video transmitter. Inside, you would put your battery, and the flight control actually sits vertically on this bulkhead right behind the front arms. You could see it in there. It mounts vertically. You configure that in the flight control software. And then in the front, behind this plastic nose cone, they have standoffs mounted for your FPV camera. And that uses standard 32 millimeter square boards like you'd have for a Sony, like a 600 TVL. Fat Shark would fit in there, Runcam, any of those. So you have a bulkhead on the front that has different length standoffs, so you can angle it forward. All in all, it's a really neat little helicopter. This is the ready-to-fly version where you just drop your battery and your receiver in and configure it. When you buy the kit comes in a tube with a sticker on it, and that tube has the frame, the arms. It's all very neatly packed. And so right now you could buy the bare frame kit for about $100 from the AeroX Aircraft site. They also have distributors. You can find them at the website. But the parts come packed inside the tube, including the little power distribution board. If you know how to solder, even if you don't know how to solder, this can be put together relatively easily. You've got big pads, lots of surface to put solder onto. And the other parts, let's get the other tubes out of there. It's about $100 right now on sale at the AeroX Aircraft website, and you can get it bundled where they sell you the motors, the ESCs, the flight control board. The bundle is in the $250 range, and the ready to fly, I didn't get the price. They were sold out at AeroX Craft. That might be a special order where they put it all together for you, but it's a really cool little helicopter. And what they're doing is they're going on the principle that this carbon fiber tube is going to have enough improved aerodynamics that when you get it up and you're going and you're flying around a course or just doing FPV, freestyle out in the field, the improved aerodynamics of the round tubes as opposed to, CNC routed flat plate, and the tube shape with the plastic cone on the front and the plastic cone on the back, that you're actually going to be able to get improved speeds with this. And I would bet it's 250 size. You could put a 4S power system in here, different motors and ESCs, and have it really rip. But it's strong, and the quality of the airframe is excellent. The manufacturing quality is excellent. So that's the Hornet 250 from AeroX Craft. They're working on the Vixen, which is going to be a 280 size. It's a refined design. They've learned a lot with the Hornet. And thank you very much to AeroX Craft for submitting that for our review. We're going to put this together and fly, getting the studio done in time to be able to do the show before next summer was kind of a priority. So I'm going to get this configured. Like we said, I just have to drop a receiver in and get it configured with the computer, and I'm going to take it out and fly. All right, so that's it for our show. We didn't get a chance to bring Scott out. Scott, you want to come out and just poke your head and say hello? This is Moto Preserve.
Hey, folks.
From Multirotorforums. He's been helping out as a product review author the last couple of years, doing some double duty as a moderator. And again, we want to say thank you very much to Multi-Rotor Mania. Brian Paddock, you're a trooper. You stepped up and gave us your support. I hope you feel like you got your money's worth. We certainly had an interesting presentation here. Again, everyone that's still watching, thank you very much. And the next show is November 11th. Some of the people that we have lined up as special guests, Bob Caniglia is going to be on here. He's the regional vice president of sales, or the regional sales manager for Blackmagic Corporation. He's going to be bringing a Blackmagic micro cinema camera into the studio here, presenting. He lives in New Jersey, so he's going to be presenting that right here at the counter, talking with us about it once it's ready for release. We've spoken to Tab Furchaw from FreeFly. He's going to come on, be a special guest via Skype, the way Mr. Brown from the AMA did. A lot of other people that we've been in touch with. We're going to have FPV racing specials. Scott and I are going to be discussing a little bit about that. And just a lot of different things. Also, I wanted to give a big shout out. This is going to be a regular feature of the show when things are going smoothly. We're going to give a free plug to a professional multi-rotor operator every show, because what we're trying to do is impress upon everybody that we're all much better off when we're operating these responsibly according to some higher standards than what some of us have been doing. And we're not here to preach. We know this is supposed to be fun. But at the same time, we want to encourage everybody to just try to achieve a higher level. And we're going to do that by showing you who the best people are right now. So the biggest shout out, the first shout out, is going to Cloner, multirotorforums.com member. He started Aerial Mob and has gone on to be uber professional. They were recognized in Hollywood as the first licensed 333, this is pre-333 exemption. They were the first of the 6 operators in Southern California to go to the FAA and say, you need to let us operate. and to do it legally. They've been recognized recently by Panavision, which is a big supplier of services and equipment to the motion picture industry, and those guys are crushing it. So Cloner from Aerial Mob in Southern California, they're our professional multi-rotor operator for this show. Congratulations, you guys are setting a great example for the rest of us. All right, thank you very much for watching. Next show is November 11th. We'll publish the schedule, who the guests are, probably in a few days, because we're not far away from getting that all finalized. All right, thank you again for watching. Good night.